Hey there, today we're looking at the Kizer Feist, a gentleman's carry knife sent to me by my buddy Nelson for me and these guys to have a look at. Well, not really these guys don't know what a knife is. Cedric literally eats the cat litter if he gets inside, so they don't know much, but here they are anyway, here to have a look. We're going to do mainly a bit of tabletop stuff, but I've also done a cut test on this knife, and you can see how it performs, the S35VN, in a couple of different ways. And yeah, just some general thoughts on this very cool, very modern little blade. Alright, still doing normal videos, don't stress. Let's get right to it. Alright, so this is the knife. As you can probably see behind, it's had its tests done and I've carried it for review. So let's talk about how I like it. So as you see here, the edge has got a somewhat of a mirrory finish. I don't know if that's showing up particularly well. Probably a little bit scuffed up from the last little bit of testing. But the S35VN is done very well in this blade. Obviously steel is something I'll cover in because I'm a bit of a steel nerd. And yeah, in my cut test that I've done just presently, it cut through the rope with this 17-degree mirror polished edge 420 times. 420, bro. That's right. And even still, it is not a dull edge whatsoever. So it's just, my test stops when it no longer reliably goes through the paper, and it's just catchy enough that on certain points, certain parts of the test edge, it's not biting it and slicing. So still, very, very good edge retention would remain on this for daily use, for sure. And apart from that, I also tested against some harder materials such as cabling, and it didn't deform the edge, against this really crappy plastic rope that I have, which knives seem to hate cutting through, didn't deform the edge, and even some light woodworking didn't deform the edge at all. And that's on my Australian dried hardwood, so pretty hard stuff. So the steel is well done, so I can comment with confidence on that in this model here. Well done steel from Kizer. The rest of the design is very much situation specific. So this is not a knife for every single job. So say something like, I guess this mantra, this could be a knife for really any situation. Like you could upscale this to using it maybe as your work knife, or you could carry this as a perfectly acceptable everyday style knife. This one is a very good everyday style knife, but probably leave it in that realm. Because yeah, things that are obvious about the design, they're not deficiencies in the design, but they're just choices. Make it that it's, it's not got a particularly amazing grip on it. It's just a stick of knife. During my cut test, which I guess is something you probably could quantify as hard work for a knife, yeah, it doesn't feel particularly comfortable to hold on to something like this and do a repetitive task. Not uncomfortable, but not so comfortable that I'm remarking on that it was good. It's just okay. I would like another inch on the handle, but that is just to fit my larger sized hands. But at any rate, the choice they've made is making a really low profile, slim little knife, similar to say the Benchmade Valet or the Mastrop Gent or something like that. And that's what they're going for here. Something that's, going to disappear into your jeans pocket for carrying around the house, to town, to wherever you're allowed to carry a knife or wherever you choose to carry a knife, and do all of your sort of odd jobs, your one-off jobs, opening that thing, slicing that thing, poking that thing, all the things we use our knives for, or at least that when I review knives, I make sure I endeavor to use my knives for. So yeah, it's for those, it's for that. So it's not a knife that's going to do all your job. So I guess that's where you're coming towards, do I want to spend $160 on something that's just for a certain type of carry? I mean, for me, sure, I'm a knife sort of collector, or I'm a knife experiencer, or an enthusiast, or whatever you'd call it. Always up for trying something new. And so yeah, if you know what you're getting into, I think the design works really, really well. But yes, limitations of that choice are that it's not particularly ergonomic. It's just a stick. Not bad, but not great. Another thing I would like to have seen is the blade being a little bit thinner. I've backed this edge up a fair bit using the KME, so it's a fair bit more of a tall bevel than it was when I first got the knife. Yeah, it's slicing pretty well now, but it's still got a fair bit of shoulder behind that edge bevel, and that's just the way it is when you have a 3, even though it's just 3mm, it's kind of saber ground and then flat ground. With either a hollow or with thinner stock, you'd get better cutting performance out of it. But it's not the end of the world, but I would suggest resharpening it, because that brings me to the next point. The factory edge wasn't great on this. It's still sort of cut cardboard, and it's still cut, but it didn't slice like I like them to. So just a little bit of extra sort of feedback, I guess, on how the knife performed straight out of the box, or straight as soon as I got it. And I believe Nelson had only had it for a short while before he sent it to me. But yeah, that's that's, I guess, the review is just it's a well done knife for very specific purposes and points in your life. Like, it's not, I wouldn't be taking this to work. It's just a bit too small and a bit too, minimalist, I guess you could say. But then minimalism is great for when you are just after something to play with. In regards to the pocket clip, that's something I should also touch on. I'm usually a deep carry advocate for those, for knives, but I think this one's done just about perfectly because the knife is so small that it is actually something nice to grab onto and pull it out of your pocket, where it would just completely disappear if it was a deep carry clip. So I'm happy with the clip, how it's worked out. Look, overall, the knife's really well put together. It's got really good fit and finish. Kizer's gone on top of their game with building knives. I will speak briefly on the Gen 1, Gen 2 Feist matter. These knives came out first, I think, middle of or early second quarter of 2017. Really gritty pivots and dicky stop pins, to the point where people were not happy with them and wanted, it made enough uproar for Kizer to say, oh shit, all right, we'll fix that. So they did. They fixed the internals, they polished them a bit more, made them smoother, fixed the stop pin, but they didn't really mark the ones that had been made after that fixing, so there's still some Gen 1s out there. The Gen 1s will apparently be quite obvious because they have a bit of grit to them when you flick them open, and this one doesn't have any grit to it. It's quite nice and smooth. It does drop shut if you wish to drop shut your knives, but it's not got the obvious failings of the Gen 1s that apparently they had. But yeah, there's still Gen 1s out there, and there is no marking on this, nor on the blade or on the handle or on the backspace or anywhere really. Even the serial number is the same to say, oh, this is a Gen 2 instead of a Gen 1. So that's a bit of a bummer, and I would have liked Kizer to have marked these sufficiently, but then I guess they've be stuck with a whole bunch of Gen 1s that are just sort of sitting out there and not doing a great deal. So shrug, could have been done a bit better, but at least they fixed it, I suppose. The only other thing I wanted to bring up about this was, the price isn't, it's S35, it's titanium, it's designer's design. It's on point. It's fine, but it's not good and it's not bad. I wouldn't say this is a value knife for what is very much a small amount of materials. Especially looking at Kizer's pricing, you can get the Thor in Australia, which is a big M390 knife, for $260. And this, by the time you get to Australia, is about $210 or $220. So just a bit of an interesting pricing scheme. They obviously don't go by bulk of materials. They go by, I guess, what they choose each knife is worth on face value. And I think because they were anticipating the front flipper trend was going to perhaps sell a few of these, then I guess maybe they chose well. But in regards to the front flipper, it's fine. It's not, I don't think I prefer it to a rear flipper. I don't think I prefer it to, say, the Mantra's deployment. I think the Mantra's deployment's just as enjoyable. Even it's very much a different way. It almost feels more comparable to a thumb stud deployment because the way you use your thumb on it, rather than using the index finger flipper. So just a little bit of thought there on that. It's not the bee's knees. It's not the, not a life-changing revolution in knives. I mean, nothing is in knives these days, really. Apart from, I would argue, maybe the ultra stainless steels like the LC200Ns. Things like that, it's very hard to innovate anymore. But it's a cool innovation, but it's not really an essential one, in my opinion. At any rate, that's my review of the Kizer Feist. Thank you, Nelson, for sending it along. Enjoyed my short time with it. I don't think I'd buy one of these personally. I think this concept is done better in maybe the Benchmade Valet. I think I would prefer. But then I'm happier with my slightly bigger knives, whereas my Benchmade 940. I'm kind of happy with knives about Benchmade 940 size that still remain quite slim and are enjoyable enough to carry for me. So that's probably does the trick for me with these. I've sort of scaled back my knife purchasing a little bit. I still love knives, but I'm happy to sort of just, I think my collection is just sitting in a really sweet spot at the moment. Maybe that's the issue. So I don't really feel I feel a need for this in mine. At any rate, that's could very well be the knife for you though. If you see this and think, I'll have that, then go ahead and have it, because the Gen 2s are well made, fun to use, fun to flip. They cut well, the steel is well done, a couple little modifications, just resharpen it yourself, and just be mindful, don't take it to work, because unless you've got really small hands, there's not really much grip to be had. You certainly can't choke up for detail work because your hand will go onto the blade. At any rate, I'll see you on the next one, guys. Goodbye.